This update revealed some interesting bugs and controversial changes. Can things still be saved or are they too far gone? Follow along with this on your screen. It is wild. So this level load bug, my friend here finishes up this level completely, beats Barrier Core, tries to load into Sentinel Barracks, and then for some reason gets kicked back out to the main menu and then has to replay the previous level again. Thankfully it's short, but what if it wasn't? This is a Pandemonium run, so this is high stakes here. If he dies, he's in big trouble. I have reported this, so hopefully it gets fixed soon. Watch here from this Reddit post here that I'll link in the description, where you can actually play levels that aren't unlocked yet. Now, when you complete them, they still remain locked, so you actually have to progress through the story as intended, but the simple fact that we can go ahead, that's pretty wild, and again, I'll report this as well. Now, this clip stands out to me, and I've seen a lot of people in the community discuss this, and maybe it got tuned a little bit too far. So, when you look here, he is on Pandemonium, and he gets one shot by an Imp Fireball at 60. So, there is a cooldown now, and I covered this in a previous video, that the player forgiveness is tuned. So, whereas you normally hit the 5 HP, the brink of death, as it's called, and you get one other shot to try, it's health gating. It's made to keep you in the fun zone, in excitement, trying to recover one final time. And the devs thought it was a little too forgiving at first, so it was toned back. However, we're now getting back into the levels of Doom 2016, where you would get one shot and die. Now, when I interviewed Hugo back in Eternal Times, this was changed for Doom Eternal because it didn't age well, and I agree with him. So now to go back to it, we're kind of hitting a middle ground here. We still get that Brink of Death system, but apparently there's an internal cooldown somewhere that says, hey, you can't have another Brink of Death after having one X amount of time ago. You know, I think that is possibly a good thing, but some players are thinking it might be overtuned so far. I think there's got to be a happy medium somewhere between these two to where we can not have it be too unforgiving to lose its luster and power and the excitement of that Brink of Death mode, but still not have it to be an instant death from a projectile that you can't see behind you, which your situational awareness needs to be good or that will happen, and that's a very key pillar of this combat. The whole thing about balance changes in a single player game, and again, I keep track of the community. I'm in Reddit, Discord, everywhere, paying attention to what people are saying in my comment section too, and they're saying, should single player games even have balance changes? Well, this is a touchy topic, I know, and we didn't have this for Eternal so much. We did, but not to this degree. See, we have something called tunables now, and this is where id Software is able to go in at the back end of the system and adjust some values, say damage, enemy health, whatever they want, and not have to push an actual patch update to be able to do it. Now, this has come to some criticism for some folks. Now, it's a pretty cool technology now. We're able to have these things adjusted without having to download a patch every time. And we did have some balance changes in Eternal, some mostly things that were fixed, such as the Dread Knight bug. Now, to go in and put these changes through is nice. You don't have to download every single time. It is a handy piece of tech that we did not have before. However, when we look at single-player games, the idea, and there's some complaints that people have given it, and sometimes people complain just to complain, yes, saying that this should have been fixed on launch. We're just giving them free QA. And to that, well, here's the thing, okay? There is a QA team at id Software. They were actually honored in Doom Eternal on the wall in the first map. They play it. I am sure they dive in. I've heard Hugo mention you'd go play, take notes, play, take notes. There's only so much that a smaller team, well, I say smaller, but it could be a large team, can find compared to the literal 3 million players that Doom the Dark Ages has to this point. They've reached it 7 times faster than Doom Eternal. So yes, there is a trained and paid QA team. They found a lot of stuff probably that never made it to the shipped version of the game that we don't even have to worry about anymore. Naturally, if you have a team versus millions of players, you're going to find extra stuff. You're going to find things because these players that we have nowadays are incredibly skilled with Ultra Nightmare, with all these challenge runs, to be able to see things and do things. I mean, look at all the tech that's come out so far. It's just crazy what happens when you have literally millions of players passionate about the series coming from Eternal, ready to break the game apart with speedrunning and high-level play. Things that you won't find unless you truly redline the system, as Hugo has used the term redline before, and finding things that just weren't even thought about. Now, there is something that people have said that I do have to agree with, and that is, why aren't they telling us when, what values change? So when these tunables are changed, there is a place in the Slayers Club that has all of the updates. So we are being given the updates of what happens. We're being told there's less forgiveness here, the Agadon Hunter is buffed there, this weapon's changed for the Komodo and bosses. So we do have the information given to us. Now, I think that being someone that loves data, I too would like to see the actual values. I would like to see, okay, there was this amount changed, there's now an X second cooldown when you go into the brink of death mode. Me, I would love to see that. And I think a lot of other people have expressed concern in the community as well, that we want to know exactly what changed so we can adapt our gameplay to fit that, as well as maybe having a warning in the game saying, hey, there was a tunable patch 1.0 whatever that was released in. Maybe that defeats the purpose of having something easily put in, but I'd like to have it, it would be nice. Now, I also understand if we can't get all of the numbers, if we're not privy to all of that data, I get that. I mean, they may not want to post every single statistic and number behind the scenes that they have, and I'll respect that and realize that maybe that is something that people are going to find through checking in the game files and such. What I found interesting is I've followed posts on socials and see people go in and they say, hey, why was this so much harder now? I died and maybe I just sucked today. Maybe I didn't get enough sleep or whatever. And then it's based off of the changes that have happened. Now, there are still more things that are coming. There's this thing in the game, they're called skill checks. These are places throughout the game that will test the skills that you've learned up to that point to see, hey, are you really getting into this? Have you learned what you need? If not, this skill check is going to stop you dead in your tracks until you master enough of the game in order to bypass this point. Probably one of the earliest skill checks would be the Impaler room from Map 4 Sentinel Barracks. That is a trickier room to where you get a new weapon, you get to experiment with it against Pinky Riders, which is a great enemy to use those against, so you can learn the flow and go along with it. Now, there's also a challenging room to see if you really understand the Doom Dance. There are, of course, probably others in the previous maps, but to be able to put more of those in because people are thinking that the early game is a little bit too easy. And I will admit that it is a little bit easier in parts, but there are still challenging encounters, like in Hibeth with the Megdubus and the Plasma. You really have to understand that arena, go around, and find places to attack. Now, the in-game being adjusted, that's already been done in the balance changes. Some of the ending boss fights, the health and armor doesn't linger as long. One of the bosses has more health. Those are actually tricky fights, and being at the end of the game will really put the pressure on the player to keep their composure together, especially on Ultra Nightmare runs, so that the challenge not only comes from the enemy itself, but the mental fortitude that you have to hold on to as a player to keep your cool, palms sweaty, losing your head, trying to keep everything together for victory. Now, I do think that the end game in this is a lot trickier versus early game, because in 2016 in Eternal, a lot of people blasted through to the end. I lost an Ultra Nightmare run to the Con in Eternal, so it's not all a free game. But the biggest concern is people wondering where the change is coming from and where are they going to go. I trust that id Software is going to fix this stuff up. I've reported bugs already, and I'm looking forward to the future. Check out all the things coming up in this update video here that you missed from Hugo.